Hey guys, so this is energy management skill number 4. So this skill specifically is designed to alleviate stress, which I'm sure so many of us have been experiencing lately. So pay attention close, and I hope this skill helps. So the way we alleviate stress is by controlling our energy levels. Controlling our energy levels gets us to that optimal performance state, which we need absolutely in both professional and personal lives. The optimal performance level is where we're in that just right mindset for physical state, mental state, and emotionally. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already have strategies in place, whether you realize it or not, where you control your energy already. However, this lesson will give you a specific technique to better and more effectively control energy. And this technique you can add on to the already in place strategies you may or may not have. A key component of resilience, long-term resilience, is rejuvenation. And as energy management ties into rejuvenation, we're going to learn a more short-term specific, immediate strategy that will help us manage energy right then and there for that optimal performance. So let's get started. So you see here that energy management is represented by a line you would see on an EKG. This is symbolic for regulating energy levels deliberately in order to perform more optimally and synchronizing the mind and the body. Bottom line up front, energy management helps build self-regulation. So remember, you're the boss, you take charge. It also impacts your ability to perform in your professional and personal life. So this involves effectively adjusting energy levels and restoring energy so you can thrive under pressure. Energy management allows you to be in control of your physical state, thoughts, and emotions in stressful situations. So the purpose is to understand the relationship between one's physical state, emotions, thoughts, and performance so you can have a greater control over these components. Okay, so at this time, when I say go, I want you to press pause on this video, go back to Google Classrooms, and click on Cougar in the Car under Energy Management. We're going to watch this clip, and I will say it does have a few profanity words. I apologize, but this is an approved video by the MRT Schoolhouse that we use as an example. So if you have kids around, I'd put headphones in. So before we watch this, a pre-brief is just, we're looking at a performer who needs to manage his energy. Let's think about what his strategies are and how effective these strategies are for the task at hand. So go ahead, press pause, and watch that clip. Alright, so welcome back. I know that video is incredibly silly. I hope it gave you a laugh and a good little break and entertainment. Again, I apologize for the profanity. But let's take a look at the performer, Ricky Bobby. What did you notice about Ricky Bobby's energy? It started really low when they were having the conversation initially, and then what happened? It quickly escalated. He had way too much energy for the task at hand. What were some of the strategies that he used or tried to use to manage his energy? Do you remember? He self-taught. He did some breathing exercises. Were his strategies effective? Was he in control of his energy, physiology, and emotions? No, he didn't have an effective skill in place and trained up. So what was the guidance his father gave him at the end of the clip? Ricky, control your heart rate. How many of you can control your heart rate? All of you can to a certain extent. In this lesson, you'll learn a skill to give you even greater control. So the gist of this video was to show you that if Ricky Bobby had an effective energy management technique that he had trained to work for him, he'd be able to take control and return his energy to a more appropriate level for the task at hand. You're going to learn a technique that is an effective tool for having greater control over their energy. So let's take a look at that. Understanding energy activation. Here we have fight or flight and rest and digest. As you see, fight or flight is a physical state that occurs in response to any stressor. It can be real or imagined. Fight or flight, think of it as the nervous system responsible for energy activation for any and all body movement. Why do you think these physiological changes you see here listed happen? Let's talk about it. Decreased digestion. This is when energy is relocated to the brain and muscles. Faster breathing and circulation, when the delivery of oxygen is sped up and nutrients to the brain and muscles. Increased energy activation, think of chemicals, such as cortisol or adrenaline, moving throughout the body. Increased perspiration ensures body maintains optimal temperature. Faster communication between brain and body, you have a quicker reaction time. So now let's look at rest and digest, which is a physical state that occurs when the body is at rest. So think of rest and digest as the nervous system responsible for energy activation towards recovery and regeneration process. Although these systems in particular can operate involuntarily, we can learn to develop control over these systems. So the key takeaway with these two is fight or flight is a state in which our bodies give us a boost of energy to deal with a stressor. The fight or flight response varies in its intensity, such as a small amount of the response may kick in if I think, I forgot to pay a bill, while a large amount of the response will kick in if I think my life is in immediate danger. Fight or flight is an involuntary primitive response. It's been hardwired into humans since the beginning of time to help us survive. But it's activated every day in response to very modern, non-life-threatening stressors, such as mentioned before, forgetting to pay the bill, worrying about the consequences of a performance, overcooking dinner, etc. Therefore, fight or flight is active more often than necessary. Sometimes, when fight or flight kicks in prior to a performance, people often interpret it as being nervous. In fact, we often feel physical sensations first and use our emotions to label our physical feelings and energy. Rest and digest is a complementary response that is designed to redirect our energy levels. Whereas fight or flight serves to activate our bodies into action, rest and digest activates our bodies for recovery and regeneration. When rest and digest is operating at full intensity in the absence of fight or flight, we could be deeply relaxed or even asleep. It's really important to learn to be aware of energy activation levels and understand the role of these two systems and develop strategies to regulate them, particularly if you want to control your performance. How you perform. So later on in the assignment, you'll dive into more of this, but I want you to think about the various ways that you perform in the Army, as well as your personal lives. Because we're talking about energy as it relates to optimal performance, you'll have to be aware of the various ways that you perform. Performances are defined by specific times when you have to have your head in the game. You feel some sort of pressure to perform well and are evaluated or measured and carry some consequences. Soldiers, family members, civilians, anyone performs in a variety of ways professionally, such as taking a PT test, qualifying on the range, giving a brief, combatives, you name it. And then personally, such as playing a musical instrument, public speaking, running a marathon, golf course, etc. So let's look more into how much energy do each of these tasks require to perform. So here are some activities that require low levels of energy. I want you to think about some of your own performances that require low levels of energy activation. Whether it's firing a weapon, public speaking, reading a book, starting an IV, etc. You'll see this later on in your assignment. Now brainstorm about performances that require higher levels of energy, such as taking APFT, powerlifting, sprinting. Performances that necessitate fine muscle movements and some degree of calm require us to have a lower level of energy activation. Performances that that is such a hard word to say, necessitate a burst of energy and gross muscle movements require us to have a higher level of energy activation. It's really essential that we recognize how much energy activation a performance requires, so we identify where their energy activation is in the moment, and that you have strategies in place to adjust your energy activation as necessary. Whew, words are just hard today. Let's move on. How much energy do you need? Here on this chart, as you see on the horizontal axis, we have energy activation. It refers to levels of energy for body systems involved in perception, attention, and movement, such as eye dilation, muscles, heart rate. It's a combination of fight or flight and rest and digest systems. This axis is how we feel our emotions and physical reactions. On the left end, there's little to no energy activation of these body systems. On the right end, there's a high level of energy activation of the body systems. The vertical axis is performance ranging from low performance at the bottom to high performance at the top. The inverted U model shows us the relationship between the amount of energy activation of our systems and our performance. As energy activation goes up, performance is enhanced to a point where higher levels of energy activation lead to decreases in performance. Individual zone of optimal functioning, often referred to as IZOF. Here on the left side, we have too little energy activation. So at the low end of the energy activation, we can expect for performance to be less than optimal because our bodies aren't ready. Our muscles may not have proper tension and blood flow due to lower heart rate, and maybe our attention may not be focused to pick up on relevant cues in the environment that require our response. You may experience this as, let's say, drowsiness, distraction, or boredom. If we have too much energy activation, we can expect for the performance to be less than optimal because muscles are too tense, your heart is racing, your attention is stuck, you're not agile. You're dwelling on irrelevant thoughts such as outcomes or consequences. You may experience this as being frazzled, panicky, or maybe simply anxiety or nerves. In the middle, we have just right, where you can expect the performance to be close to our best possible because our bodies have a relaxed intensity and muscles are activated but not overly tense. Our heart is pumping appropriately to nourish the activated state. Attention is centered and focused with enough agility to perceive relevant information in the environment. We experience this as being in the zone, or in flow, or a rhythm. For every task, there's an ideal level of energy activation required to perform optimally. This ideal level can vary for different tasks, like darting a needle requires less activation than hurdling an obstacle. This inverted U can vary very much so, between people. The peak of the curve is called, like I said, the IZOF, individual zone of optimal functioning. And because we want to perform well, it's really essential that we develop self-awareness of our own IZOF and current energy activation levels to alert us when our energy is too little or too much, and to develop tools to help us self-regulate our levels of energy activation. By understanding this model, it can help us also help other individuals recognize energy activation levels in themselves and develop empathy for others who may be overly activated. And by doing this, this helps build those relationships in the process. Emotion impacts performance. The relationship of emotions and energy activation is huge. It affects the ability to change energy by controlling our emotions and physical feelings. Extensive research by Jekyll and Hanin shows that with elite level athletes, suggests that those athletes who use their emotions to get in their optimal zone of energy prior to performance tend to perform significantly better than when they're outside their zone of energy. So think about how much performance improvement you can expect from putting yourself in your IZOF before performing. We're going to take a look at some hypothetical examples of what this might mean for a couple specific performances. So here we have an example of an IZOF for APFT performance. Assuming that this research finding is true for all performers, and it should given it's been documented with about 3,000 athletes in different sports and ability levels, we expect soldiers to perform better when they're in their IZOF too. A 2007 study found Army mechanics averaged 61 push-ups, where we would expect this group of soldiers to average 68 if they got in their IZOF. Since half of the standard deviation of 14 equals 7, that's where the standard deviations will come from. They averaged 66 sit-ups, but would likely average 71 in their IZOF, with a standard deviation of 10. They did the run in about 14:48, but would likely run 42 seconds faster, making it 14:06, if they were in their IZOF, standard deviation of 84 seconds. An infantry troop at Fort Hood recently averaged 255 points on the APFT. They could improve their unit average by 13 points to 268 by collectively getting in their IZOFs. Data actually collected by some of the MRT PEs with 3 CR at Fort Hood, standard deviation of 26. So there's 3 skills for finding your IZOF. The first skill is proactive ATC. Here we're going to use an example of a proactive thought that can be used to generate emotions and reactions needed for you to be in your IZOF. So you have an anticipated situation, but immediately you take control and tell yourself, I have trained over and over for this moment. Therefore, your ER, your emotion will be confident, and your reaction is calm and centered. Remember that your thoughts drive consequences, which affects your future thoughts and creates new AEs. So the concept of this proactive ATC is used to proactively generate emotions necessary to get you to that just right IZOF. So our thoughts drive our physical reactions. As you see here, the thought, my career depends on this. It has the physical reaction of your heart pounding, and you can even feel sick. Sometimes we don't proactively engage in ATC and fight or flight. It's often a result of our heat of the moment thoughts. So with this example, it illustrates to us that the thoughts that are driving this individual to experience physical changes caused by fight or flight. It causes us to downward spiral incredibly fast, decreasing our energy and performance. So again, our thoughts drive our consequences, and those consequences, specifically the initiation of fight or flight and the accompanying physical changes, they influence how well we perform. Here you can see that these type of thoughts are resulting in the activation of fight or flight, causing uncomfortable physical reactions. An individual could perform optimally or suboptimally in this state depending on how they think about their physical reactions. Interpreting physical reactions. This usually is less effective. So you see a bunch of arrows every which way on this slide. This is to show us that how each part of the model influences all the other parts of the model. Physical reactions have become the new activating event when we do this. interpreting the whole physical reaction. So we need to deliberately and effectively interpret and accept these physical changes in order to facilitate optimal performance. You can see that here, the physical reactions from the previous slide have now become the new activating event. Our thoughts lead to consequences, which can reinforce the thoughts and now cause a more intensive set of consequences, such as, I'm panicked, so now I must not be prepared. If someone experiences the consequences shown here, they're not likely to perform well at the task at hand. Our thoughts and consequences have real life impacts. Whether we do well at a promotion board, pass the APFT, pitch a module correctly, etc. If we find ourselves about to perform and our physical state is not where it needs to be, we need to change our thoughts in order to influence our physical state to increase the likelihood of performing well. Okay, so now we're on to skill 2, interpreting physical reactions more effectively. So the need to deliberately and effectively interpret or accept uncomfortable physical changes, this is in order to facilitate optimal performance. It's just fight or flight, ensuring that we have enough activation. By deliberately influencing the consequences box, we do this by leveraging our thoughts. This is the goal of the energy management lesson. When our physical state changes prior to a performance, we need to be very deliberate about having precise thoughts about those physical changes that set us up to perform well. This is a tool to gain control of our emotions and reactions, which are very central to our energy activation, and it alleviates stress. So an example of, well, what is a precise thought to get me towards that optimal performance? Well, if my heart's pounding, feeling sick, my example is sports. So when I used to play lacrosse, when my heart started pounding and feeling sick, I tell myself, oh, it's game time. And that motivation right there, coming from that thought, it's game time, it interpreted the physical reactions of, okay, butterflies is good, nerves is good, it's game time. Which therefore my consequences, I was excited, I was energized, and right in my just right IZOF. Okay, so now skill 3, deliberate breathing. Deliberate breathing is a technique to engage, rest, and digest in order to create balance between the system and fight or flight, ultimately allowing more optimal performance. It's a self-regulation technique that includes breathing rhythmically, such as a 5 count or 3 to 5 seconds. So essentially you're breathing with the cadence. So you would count an inhale for 5 seconds and then count and exhale for 5 seconds. You want to breathe from your diaphragm. So what does that mean? From your stomach. You got to breathe deep. So when practiced on a regular basis, this has been proven to show that deliberate breathing allows us to create this balance between rest and digest and fight or flight. So we can have that just right energy level that's appropriate for whatever performance we're facing, conserve valuable energy, and quiet our minds and bring our focus to the present moment. All of these benefits enable more optimal performance. It also allows us to have a healthy way to control our heart rate. Now, disclaimer, when you actually exercise this and practice this technique, we recommend you sit down because we have had some people pass out by breathing too deep and too quickly. So make sure your cadence is slow, it's controlled, and it's relaxing. So listed here are some of the performance benefits due to deliberate breathing. Think of specific performances for yourself when each of these benefits would be helpful. When we use these breathing techniques in performance moments, such as taking 2 to 3 breaths immediately prior to or while engaging in the performance, deliberate breathing causes your mind to have fewer thoughts and brings your attention to the present moment, allowing the following benefits to occur. So here we have precision, accuracy, and motor control. Smooth trigger squeeze, starting an IV, etc. With memory and recall, such as test taking, learning a module, pitching a module. With composure, poise, and self-control, getting chewed out, any performance when you're especially nervous. With concentration and mental agility, contingency planning during an important conversation, etc. Reaction time during a firefight, qualifying with a weapon, maybe hunting. You'll see that to get the full benefits of such performances, it's maintained only if deliberate breathing is practiced on a regular basis. You got to train up for this. It doesn't just happen naturally. Like all of these skills, they're skills. You got to practice them. Practice makes perfect. Moving on to recovery benefits. One of the highlights of deliberate breathing is rejuvenation. Deliberate breathing induces rest and digest, which reins in the effects of fight or flight and keeps you in the center of your inverted U model. So that just right zone. Diving into the recovery benefits, increases energy efficiency. Deliberate breathing helps the body to slow down and restores energy more efficiently, so it's got more energy in the long run. Speeds healing. Using deliberate breathing regularly allows your immune system to function optimally and your body to heal faster. Helps manage pain. Because pain is experienced in the brain, managing your physical and mental state can reduce the experience of pain. And reduces insomnia. Engaging in deliberate breathing can help you fall asleep more easily. And again, to reach the maximum benefit of this deliberate breathing exercise, you should practice it on a daily basis. Okay, so these are the key principles of energy management. It's just a quick review and roll-up of energy management. So remember, EM and deliberate breathing give you control of your thoughts and consequences, including emotions and reactions. And by using deliberate breathing on a regular basis, it causes your body to work more efficiently, which means for us that we'll have more energy consistently. It gives us that control factor. Deliberate breathing is a skill. Like I said, it's going to take time. It's a skill. You got to practice it in order to become proficient in it and reap the full benefits. And last but not least, it's a self-regulation skill. So as we wrap up here, just real quick, I want to walk you all through deliberate breathing. A lot of people don't know how to deliberate breathe correctly. So just real fast, what I want you all to do is take one hand and place it on your stomach. And with the other hand, place it on top of your chest. Just breathe normally. Don't try to control it, just relax and note how you're breathing normally. Now, I want you to see and note the changes when you breathe, bear with me, diaphragmatically. Whew, said it right, all right. And slowly and rhythmically. So now, I want you to close your eyes with your hands still on your stomach and chest and breathe in. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. To do this rhythmic breathing pattern, the most efficiently way to do it is make sure you're sitting up straight, uncross your legs and your arms. This is to facilitate circulation. So I want you to continue to breathe in that cadence of 5 seconds and exhale for 5 seconds. Remember that this is a self-regulation technique that includes physical, mental, and even emotional components, which together produce an immediate change in our physical state that is the opposite of fight or flight. Make sure you get a deep breath coming from the pit of your stomach. That's when we breathe the most efficiently, where we get the greatest quantity of oxygen into our blood, is when we breathe all the way into the bottom of our lungs. This is caused by moving the abdomen in and out as we breathe, rather than allowing the chest and shoulders to move up and down. While doing this, part of the skill is understanding that you're going to get distracted, but rather than get frustrated, let the distractors go and then just come back. Return your focus to your initial thought. So while you're breathing, we want to control our thoughts. That's the point of deliberate breathing. It requires us to control our emotions and physical reactions by controlling what we think. While all positive emotions have an undoing effect, research shows that the emotions of appreciation and gratitude have the greatest benefit in deliberate breathing. We'll have you practice using ATC with a focus on gratitude, but you can use any thought to generate a desirable consequence. So again, think about controlling your thoughts, good vibes, positive emotions, relax, sit up tall, uncross your legs and arms, and breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here's our energy management check on learning. What's the skill? When do you use it? And how you use it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out after this video. If not, at this time, go ahead and begin your energy management assignment.